real estate biz is drastically changing, and modern real estate success can't be learned in some old course manual. This is everything they never told you about real estate, where industry leaders expose secrets to success, contemporary lead generation, and how to dominate social media. All moderated by your host, the real estate goat and queen of social media, Carrie Soave.
Welcome. I am your host, Carrie, and I have a very special guest today. It's Adrian Pannozzo. Now, he is the CEO and founder of a real estate investment firm called Executive Properties Capital. He's also a realtor with the same brokers that I'm at, eXp Realty. And we're going to talk about investments, maybe a little bit about the landlord-tenant board. And we're going to talk about eXp and being a realtor. Thank you so much for coming on today, Adrian.
Yeah, great to be here, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of my podcast is Everything They Never Told You About Real Estate. So let's get that out of the way. You've had your license for how long? I want to say.
Got licensed in 2017, so 6 years.
Okay, so 6 years, that's a substantial amount of time. What is the one thing that nobody ever told you about our industry before you got into it?
That's a really good question. I thought we were going to be talking about real estate, not about that stuff. But it's a tough go when you first start out. It's a very, very tough go when you first start. And I didn't expect it to be as tough as it was when I first started. But when I started, it was a really good time in real estate. The market was booming. Investment real estate, which is what we focus on, was doing very, very well. Although, everybody thinks the same thing. Oh, I'm going to get my license. I'm going to drive a fancy car. I'm going to make all this money. And people are going to call me off the hook, right?
Yeah.
People are going to have my friends and family and my friends of my friends of friends. They're going to call me, and I'm just going to be doing deals all the time. And it's this misconstrued, perception of the industry that you're just going to make a ton of money, and it's so easy, and you're going to drive a fancy car, and life's great, and then reality hits, and it's nothing like that.
Yes, it's so hard. And no matter who I talk to, how long they've been in the industry, or how successful they've become, that is the general consensus. When everybody gets into this industry, they don't understand how hard it is until they start. It is a grind. So for anybody out there thinking about getting into real estate, prepare yourself, get your head right. Surround yourself with the right people. That's the key. Now let's talk a little bit about, because your focus is on multi-residential. So I believe we had a conversation the other day, and you were talking about how you're not even really focusing on the duplexes and the triplexes anymore. It's more the small apartment buildings. So what does that market look like right now in Hamilton?
It's great. And we focus more on the bigger buildings right now because, quite honestly, it's the same amount of work. If I'm turning over a 10-unit apartment building, it's the same amount of effort, supervision, and work as it would be if I'm, turning over a triplex or a fourplex. And I say that because when we buy the tris and the quads here in Hamilton, more often than not, there's structural improvements. We're opening up walls. We're eliminating load-bearing walls and whatnot. So we're working with the city and permits. The permit process in Hamilton is super, super slow. So it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of supervision and effort. When we're focusing more on the bigger apartment building stuff, when we're renovating, let's say, just a one unit in that building, we're in and out in 30 days. And then we're on to the next unit. So being able to, I guess, turn over that acquisition and renovate it and refinance it, which is our bread and butter, it goes a lot quicker. And then, like, instead of having to drive to 10 different properties spread across the city, which we historically have been, or that's what our bread and butter was when we were buying, like those smaller stuff. Now we have, 20, 30 units in one building. So we can eliminate, we don't have 10 roofs or 15 roofs. We have one roof, 20 units, one, furnace, stuff like that. It's definitely just as lucrative, easier and quicker typically to renovate and refinance than the smaller stuff.
I feel like,
I think right now.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like there would be less risk involved on the property management side as well with a larger apartment building than it would, say, like a duplex. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Definitely less risk as well. And another great point about it is with the apartment buildings, you're dealing with commercial lending, so commercial mortgages. It's much easier, believe it or not, it's much easier to get a mortgage on an apartment building than it is on a triplex.
Get out.
And the reason being is with the apartment buildings, it's the building qualifying for the loan, as opposed with commercial lending. With the triplex on the residential lending platform, it's me qualifying for the loan. So, what's my debt? How many mortgages do I already have? Do I have, a $2,000 a month car payment on my lease and stuff like that? You can own 100 apartment buildings, in different corporations, no problem. But as an individual, I could never own 100 triplexes in my name on a residential mortgage. Not going to happen. I'd have to make $7 million.
Question. This may be a really stupid question, but if someone say me, if I'm to go and buy a apartment building with 15 units, am I buying that under my own name or am I buying that under a corp?
Corp.
Okay. Why?
Yeah. It's an added layer of protection for the purchaser. So, and also for tax purposes. And I'm not really going to deep dive into the tax thing because I'm not an accountant. But you're definitely saving your corporation. Your corporate taxes are much cheaper than personal taxes.
Yeah.
But above and beyond that, there's a layer of protection. There's a extra cushion of protection. A lot of people wind up putting these buildings in different corps as opposed to their personal name. More residential mortgages are in people's personal names. When you're dealing with, a residential duplex in the lender Scotiabank, more often than not, all of those mortgages are in people's personal names, as opposed to the apartment building space when they're in courts, like you said.
Yeah. So in terms of, there's obviously no shortage of apartment buildings that need some TLC. That's the way we'll put it in Hamilton. I feel I've been living in Hamilton for probably about 20 years and they're everywhere. However, you never see them on the market. You rarely ever see them on MLS. So,
right.
How do you find these? Do you go out door knocking? You can't really door knock because they're tenanted, right? How do you find these deals? How do you find these buildings that are the perfect situation for you to renovate and refi?
Yeah, good question. So I've been at this now for about 12 years in the multifamily investing space. So I've made a lot of really good contacts in that space. that have now, they're bringing me deals twice a week. Deals come
Mm.
across my desk, again, anywhere between 6 units all the way up to 50 units and everything in between. So just being in the game for as long as I have been and making those connections, those relationships, kind of like all the people all the realtors in this space, you probably know a lot more. You've been in the game a lot longer than me as far as selling real estate or buying. But yeah, so just my background and building a brand and building those relationships over the last 12 years now.
Hmm.
I'm on their mailing list. They're calling me right away. And I think a lot goes to our reputation too. Like, we close deals. We don't kick tires. Like, we close. It's not like I've never not closed a transaction. And that reputation obviously holds strong, right? And we're getting those leads from that.
Yeah. So I think it's important for investors or people wanting to get into multifamily investment to realize that a lot of these great opportunities are not going to come across MLS. You're not going to see them on realtor.ca. It's very important for you to get a realtor who has a network of commercial realtors where these things are passed between them, because that's where all of these deals happen. I see it every day. I get packages coming to me every day, not for multi-res, because I don't focus on that like you. I get it for land for development, but it's the same kind of thing. So make sure you're getting a realtor who has great connections and has a great presence in your market, so that you're seeing all of the inventory and you're seeing all the opportunities. I think that's key. So
Absolutely, it is.
how many doors do you have now, Adrian, in Hamilton?
420.
Good for you. That's impressive.
Yeah, 420. It's been 12 years in the making. And when I started investing 12 years ago, I thought, you know what? Goes to show you, you never know, right? But I started out thinking, I want to have one or two properties that cash flow. And so when I retire, I have a little bit of cash flow coming in, passive income to, that'll be retired. And that kind of obviously went completely the opposite way and just took off. Our business took off there within the last, like I said, I've been at it 12 years. So yeah, it's gone well.
Yeah. And you used to be a police officer, correct?
Yeah, I worked in the GTA, specifically Brampton, Mississauga area.
Okay.
And I was a police officer for 21 years before I left the police department early, and then started just focusing full time on real estate investing.
Okay. So here's the question of the hour. Which career do you prefer? Which one was better?
It's really hard to compare, but I would say the career I'm in now. They're completely different, obviously.
Yeah.
But I left policing and wanted to focus more on real estate because real estate investing provided me with freedom.
Yes.
As opposed to not being locked down on a very regimented schedule with the police department. And I was after that freedom. And that's what real estate investing gave me.
Yeah. I love that. So obviously interest rate went up again yesterday. We've been going through a time here in Ontario specifically for the past, 8-9 months, of the interest rates going up, the market slowing down. Investing gives you freedom. So would you still say that it's a great time to invest in real estate?
Yes, because you're going to capitalize on the purchase prices. You know, being a realtor yourself, prices had come down.
Yeah.
And the prices will shoot up again one day, probably potentially north of where they were before the correction. And if you know how to run your numbers, it's all about running the numbers. So if you can save on the purchase price and the numbers still work, why wouldn't you buy now?
Yeah. And I feel like most people don't understand that real estate is always going to be a good investment as long as it's being looked at as a long-term investment. Would you agree?
Right.
Which
Yes.
is,
All my assets are long term. I don't flip.
Mhm.
We're more of a buy, renovate, and hold for years. The longer you hold real estate, in my opinion, the longer you hold real estate, you can't lose.
Absolutely. So it's always a good time to buy. I always have the biggest struggle that I have with my investor clients. So these are homeowners that are looking to get into a second or third property. And the last year, the biggest struggle I've had is pulling them out of the mindset of following the masses and getting them into, looking at the actual market and running the numbers right now. So I have clients who are really want to invest in real estate. They want to invest in their retirement, their future. They know real estate is the best option for that. However, they're not buying at the right time. Like they disappear when prices drop and buyers disappear, they disappear along with them and then resurface. I can literally time it. I can time it. I'll start getting the phone calls from the buyers. Like, what was it, February? I feel like I started just getting a lot of calls from my, my SOI, ready to buy, ready to come back to market. And at the same time, these investor clients come out of the woodwork too. And that's one thing I've been struggling with, is trying to educate them enough so that they feel comfortable making a move when the masses are moving in a completely different direction, because that's the key to investment, right? It's not, you don't invest when everybody else is buying. You need to move opposite. What do? I try my best. I show them the numbers, I show them stats, I show them historical graphs. I just can't pull them out of that mindset. What do you suggest?
You're doing everything I'm doing. The numbers, the stats, long-term wealth, so on and so forth. And you know what's funny about that? There's no magic trick. I mean, you got to handle that objection
Mm-hmm.
that they give you, like, well, I'm going to wait. And, you could give them all the right information in the world. And ultimately, you know, if they don't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And, there's some people that I'll say, you know, now's a great time. Now's a great time. And then let's say 2 years down the road, I bump into them at an investor seminar or something, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Da, da, da. And I'm like, so tell me, what have you bought? What's been going on? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And they're like, haven't bought anything yet. And I'm like, oh, really? Really? That's bizarre. Why not? Just trying to decide, if it's the right time. Same excuses, right? And I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate because, since I last saw you, we bought another 25 properties and now the market's up another 6%. So I just
Right.
created another $500,000 in equity for myself because I took action.
Yes.
And you're still coming to these seminars and you're still buying books and you're still doing everything, but you're never going to take action.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's so
Like sooner or
common.
later, you got to take action. You got to take action sooner or later. You can analysis paralysis. Is that what they call it?
I
Where
like that.
you're never gonna do it, and you make up every excuse in the world not to do it. Meanwhile, you have the money to do it, but you're just scared. Well, if I was scared 12 years ago, I would still be a police officer. It'd be 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be trying to fall asleep in my cruiser.
Yes,
if I never took action.
exactly. And
So
and I understand there's a lot of people out there that it, investing is way out of their comfort level. It's way out of their comfort zone. They're comfortable with their RSPs. Some of them not even. My parents are that way. So my parents are very, they're just very traditional people who bought the house they lived in, pay their mortgage off quickly, and were mortgage free for the majority of their lives. And then they have this daughter who's buying properties. And you got to understand, when I started buying, I was single as well. So I'm a female and I'm single. And they're just like in full panic mode because I'm buying properties by myself. And then I buy a hotel and they were just like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? And I
no,
just continue to do it and they continue to question, not question, but it's just so scary for them. And I'm their daughter. It's just something that they would never consider. And now, after watching me do this for about 15 years, my parents are retired, they're a lot older now. And I say, I wish you would let me get you a rental property. And they say, if we were younger and in better health, we would. I'm like, yeah, but you were younger and in better health and you were completely
never
freaked
did.
out, right? But,
Yeah.
some people never get to that point, and that's fine. That's fine, to each
Yeah.
their own. But I didn't have anybody to teach me how to do what I do, and it's been a lot of trial and error. So if I could have found a realtor or a mentor at the time, I would be in a much different position today and I would be a lot further along. So now with these, you have an investment group meetup. They're in every city. There's realtors now specializing in this. This is all that they do. Yeah, there's help out there and there's guidance out there, which is really, really important.
There's so much. There's so much help and guidance out there. I mean, just do your own on the internet, and then there's so many different coaches, real estate coaches out there that you could hire and surround yourself with the right people, or
Hmm.
training programs, whatever. Like, you don't have to do it alone. There's people like me who joint venture and
Yes.
use their expertise to get into a very successful project together. So there's really, like, you don't need to do it alone. And I realize it can be intimidating
Hmm.
if it's your first rodeo, but you don't have to do it alone. I guess that's the point.
Yeah. So what would that look like? Tell me a little bit about the joint venture aspect of it. What would an investor need to have to do this? How much money available? How would that all work?
So typically in every joint venture, and it could be structured any way you want, there's no set rule, but
Hmm.
in every joint venture, normally you have a money partner and then you have a sweat equity partner.
Hmm.
So in our joint ventures, we are the sweat equity partners. So
Hmm.
we're finding the property, we're analyzing the property, we bring the deal to a particular investor, and basically, say, here's the deal, here are the numbers, we walk through it together, so on and so forth. And then obviously, if the investor is interested in, moving forward, then we secure that property, and then we have an in-house construction company that does the renovations on that distressed property that we're buying. And then lastly, our in-house property management company will tenant the building, put new tenants in there, so on and so forth, look after all that. Then we refinance the building and pull that equity out and
Hmm.
give it back to the investor. We still hold on to the acquisition, 50-50 ownership on the acquisition with the investor. So
Okay.
we typically, like I said, we don't flip. We'll just hold that for 5, 10, 15 years. and then, you know, sell it down the road sometime and cash in.
Yeah. Have you been down the road of purpose-built apartment buildings yet? Or have you been considering adding that to your portfolio?
Yeah, we're definitely in that space now for
Okay.
the purpose-built buildings. And again, we're buying them anywhere between 20 units to 50 units and then some. It's I like them. I'm getting to really like them. Before I kind of steered away from them because my bread and butter was, you know, your typical triplex, fourplex. But
Yeah.
now we're more focusing on those guys.
I'm getting a lot of, so I have a lot of builder clients on the commercial side, and I'm getting a lot of them shifting more towards building apartment buildings as opposed to condos, or townhomes, or detached.
Right.
Um, I think because of the incentives and the eagerness of most of the municipalities to cooperate with that kind of thing for housing. Have heard a couple things about some HST advantages that may be coming down the pipeline. I was speaking with
Right.
somebody the other day. Right now, I believe HST is charged. So you buy your piece of land at say $1 million, you build, now it's worth 15 or 20 million, you have to pay HST on that 15 or 20, not the purchase price. I've heard that's all going to change, which is going to be a
Wow.
major incentive for these builders doing purpose built apartment
Absolutely.
buildings. So that's
Yeah.
something to watch for. Okay, let's talk about the property management side a little bit. I just had a complete nightmare at one of my rental properties. Now, I would like to disclose this. I know how to choose tenants. I'm a freaking realtor and I've been a landlord for 15 years. I rented to a friend. So, and it really opened my eyes because before renting to this friend, everything, I had really great experiences with my tenants, and it really opened my eyes to what's going on with the landlord tenant board, the problems and a lot of small landlords are facing. And I had to take a crash course with my paralegal on, you know,
Okay.
certain hacks for renting and doing your background searches, or loopholes in the LTV system. So, have you had any bad experiences? Like over 400 doors, that is a lot. So, I imagine you've had some times.
Yes, but very few and far between, thankfully. I think in the 12 years I've been in this game, we've only had to get the sheriff involved for eviction, that is, 3, 4 times
Good
in
for
12
you.
years and 400 units. So,
Good
I
for
mean,
you.
I mean, it's almost like none when you take into account the
Yeah.
number the number of years we've been doing this, and you take into account how many doors we have. Like, we've been very successful as well, and like you said, it's really taking the time at the beginning, and it's never going to be 100%, right? A
No.
bad apple may slip through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
It'll never be 100%, but the more time you take doing your due diligence when you're
Mm-hmm.
going to secure a tenant, is really going to, you know, make or break you when it comes to that,
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
so I think a major problem in our industry is the amount of realtors that are not familiar with and do not educate themselves on the LTV process and the eviction process, number one. And number two, they're running around submitting and accepting leases without knowing what the F they're doing. I think it's a
Right.
major problem in our industry. Somebody needs to hold a mandatory course on, listing a home that's tenanted. And you've got realtors throwing houses up on the market that have tenants that the landlord has been very clear are not going to leave. And these are single family homes, right? So me personally, as a realtor, I would never even deal with that until there's an 11 sign. I'd never put it on the market, especially a single family home, right? But this is the problem. Realtors are so uneducated on this subject. I think it needs to be mandatory. So if Ori is listening out there, or Rico, or whatever, I think there needs to be some kind of course that takes you through the process and the tenant rights and the landlord rights, but also, teaches you how to qualify tenants properly. No, if you're representing the tenant or the landlord, there's a serious lack of knowledge in our industry on how to do that properly. We've got realtors submitting documents that are fraudulent, and they don't know because they don't bother to learn about this stuff,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
another public service announcement to any investors out there: do your homework. Hire a realtor who knows what the F they're doing in this space, because it could literally ruin your life. You get a bad tenant in there, you could lose your house if you just bought it.
It'll definitely cost you thousands of dollars. That's for sure.
Yeah.
In lost income, who knows, potential damages to the property, yada yada yada. Yeah, it'll cost you thousands of dollars. But again, like we've gotten very good results. But again, in 12 years, we had 4 slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And
It
it's going to
happens.
happen. It's going to happen. You can look
Yeah, it'll
perfect
happen.
on paper, and then, shit happens. Life happens. People lose their jobs. There's mental health issues. A lot of things come into play, right? Do you have any hacks you want to share when qualifying tenants that you want to share?
Nothing off the charts, pretty basic stuff. Obviously, we're calling the current landlord, we're calling the landlord previous to the current one, we're asking for pay stubs, we're asking for credit, obviously, asking for references. All that due diligence stuff is done. And then, if their credit score or their situation isn't the most perfect because of whatever, but we really still want to entertain the applicant, obviously we'll ask for a cosign to co-sign on the lease as well. But bottom line is we do take as many steps as necessary. And you know what? If we're not comfortable with it, we just won't proceed. We won't try and. You shouldn't try and make that square peg and fit into a round hole, so to speak.
Yes.
If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If they're not a good fit, just let it go and move on, as opposed to trying to say, well, if we do this and they get another cosigner and they get this and they get that, you're trying too hard. There's so many good potential tenants out there. You don't need to try and get this, as I said, a square peg in the round hole.
Yeah.
So just food for thought on that.
Don't
rush it. Take your time.
Yeah, I have a hack. I don't think enough people know about it. There's a couple of sites that I search my tenants' names before I even do the background check or call the references. One being Open Room, and the other being Canly.
Open Room, I've never heard of that one.
Okay, so Open Room is a site purely for landlord and tenant judgments. So
landlord and tenant judgments?
Yeah, so there has to be a judgment, but once there's a judgment, it is 100% legal to share the full judgment, including names, on the site. whether it's a bad tenant or a bad landlord. I just rented out the place that I had my bad experience at. The first guy that called me sounded amazing on the phone. I said, great, send me a picture of your driver's license. Went on openroom.ca, typed in his name. Oh, look, a year and a half ago, he didn't pay rent for 8 months. I could see the whole judgment, which was fantastic.
Wow.
Like fantastic. Not enough people know about this site. And then there's also Canlii. So Canlii. And that is all kinds of judgments. You can see marriage, like divorce judgments. Like it's not just landlord tenant board. However, those are on there as well. So it kind of gives you a better picture. So you should check those out, Adrian. Have your property management manager put those on your file because those are handy.
Canlii and Open Room.
Yeah.
All right.
You're welcome.
We'll definitely put it on our list of checks or add it to our list of checks to add.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense. We'll put it on our list of checks.
And obviously being realtors, like we have the ability to see if we're talking to somebody who actually owns a past home, you know what I mean? As a landlord reference, we have these abilities. You know, don't just call an employer from the number they provide. Call the office. You know what I mean? There's little things like that. You just really have to do your due diligence.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about EXP. So we both belong to EXP. I moved over to EXP a couple of years ago, and probably the best decision I've made in my life. I've been with Royal Page. I've been with Remax. I've been with like a small boutique brokerage as well. And this is the one I'm enjoying the most because for me, it gives me access to more professionals that I can aspire to and model my business after because it's international, right? And it's such a collaborative brokerage. That was the main reason I moved over. But I found myself thinking last night, because I've had a few commercial listings now. And I've had a few commercial listings, just over this summer. So maybe in the last 2-3 months, more than, I would like to take on. And I also always get a little bit apprehensive when it comes to commercial because there's like a rule of thumb and understanding in the commercial industry that you want to keep all your listings off market to attract the serious investors and the serious players. I learned this when I had commercial buyers. I would call them about a project and their first question out of their mouth would be, is it on MLS? If it is, I don't want to see it. So I learned pretty quickly to keep everything off MLS. The serious players find it more valuable. So what does that mean? That means it's not on realtor.ca and available to the general public. And that means that you have to do all the legwork yourself. You're calling realtors, you're calling investors, you are kicking it old school. And after having listing and selling in a matter of days, my commercial listings, it's because of EXP. Because we have such a huge commercial network in Toronto of realtors through our workplace. So workplace is kind of like our Facebook for EXP. We've got groups in there. I literally put them in the group and I've got 15 to 20 calls. And it's made my life with my commercial and my business with my commercial 1,000 times more efficient and 1,000 times easier. So I was actually sitting there last night. I had a commercial off-market listing and I thought, okay, going on workplace, I'm creating one post for it, posting it on my socials, posting it in our EXP network, posting it in a couple of investor networks that I have on Facebook. I got an offer 2 hours later, and I have more offers coming in today. And it's literally, I'm going to credit a lot of it to EXP and the network of agents. Are you finding that you're benefiting from, like, your multi-res business is benefiting from EXP as well?
Yes, I don't track it, to be honest with you. We got it coming in every which way. Obviously, you track it a little bit more detailed than I do. I love the whole model. It was a no-brainer for me to transfer over to. I love the fact that, you know, your downline income coming in is there, and it's transferable to your family down the road, even after you're gone, so to speak. Like, it's still there. The whole stock auction, everything like that. Like, at the end of the day, there's many more pluses. And I'm not one of those guys that focuses on so much of a brokerage, but other than, you know, trying my best to make as much money as I can, so to speak. But the benefits are a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like if you're a commercial agent, you would benefit a lot from being with EXP. And if you're a residential agent, you benefit a ton because of the level of collaboration. So when I first moved over, everybody was like, why would you move? You know, you're doing really well. Like, what's happening here? Must be expensive to move. That's what they say to me. And I say, well, here's an example. I was with Remax. I said, try getting the top producer for Remax Canada on the phone, number one. If you can, try to get him to share anything of value that's going to help your business. It just isn't happening. And that is the reality of our traditional brokerage model and the traditional real estate industry. It's highly competitive and not open at all. So that's what attracted me to EXP. I can call a top producer, one of the top producers in the US. And, like, I'm a little bit jaded. I feel like in terms of sales, the US does everything better. They're a little bit more advanced. They're a little bit more aggressive. Their energy is different. Forget about Canada. I can call the top producer in the US for real estate on the phone, and they're going to say to me, what do you need? What can I help you with? Do you want me to share my systems with you? And that's what it's like being in EXP. So that was really the game changer for me. Would I have a podcast if I didn't change over to EXP? Probably not. Would I have built my coaching program if I didn't change over to EXP? No, because I don't know, outside of Kathleen Black, 3 years ago, I didn't know any agents that had an actual successful coaching program. However, I know a lot in the US now through EXP, and they share their marketing companies with me. Like, it's just so open and it's on a different level. So I'm never leaving. This is my home now. Oh, Adrian, do you have any, like, final tips for any investors or any agents out there that want to get more into the multifamily side?
Do I have any tips? It's easier than doing the smaller stuff. It could be just as lucrative, but look at the big picture. It's much easier to control 40 units under one roof than 40 units spread across. Biggest tip, it's much easier to get a commercial mortgage than it is a residential mortgage. That's a fact. So if you're struggling because, you know, you don't have, I guess, the ability to get more mortgages, look at commercial lending. It's so much easier to get a commercial mortgage, even if you're tapped out with your debt service on a residential platform. There's still a whole commercial platform that you could leverage to continue to invest in real estate.
Amazing. That's such good advice. And I don't think enough people know that. I actually had a client tell me a year ago that between her and her husband, they were maxed out now on properties. And I'm going to call her and tell her that's not the case.
Yeah.
They just got to make some pivots, right? That's all. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Adrian. This has been such a great chat. And we're going to be doing more business together in the future. And we're going to be seeing more of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, enjoy the weekend. Thanks for having me on. And if I can help anybody improve their business in the multifamily space, reach out. I'd love to give you a hand.
Perfect.
Thanks for listening to Everything They Never Told You About Real Estate. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To connect with Carrie or for more information about her coaching program, check out carriesoave.ca or at Carrie Soave and Associates on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.